Is there anybody there?
Why is Omaha and KC's relationship so long? Is it just the geography? Like, would you keep a whole relationship based on that?
What's up, Data Hack crew, and welcome to another episode of the Data Hack Chronicles. Actually, this is a three-part episode. That's right. I got to sit down and have an awesome conversation with Dan Napoli. He is a film producer. He produces a lot of cool documentaries, and the one that we really discuss in this three-part episode is 50 Summers, in which it has to do with the Omaha Storm Chasers. This year I went there, and that's where I got to meet him, and we really got to bond and had really good conversations while we were there. So I invited him on, and he was, the stories, how he got a lot of the people that were on the film, the sets that he produced, all that stuff, right? Like part one, we really get to know him as a fan, and some of the cool stories about getting some of the people, for example, Warren Buffett, right? Listen, I can't tell you too much because I really had a lot of fun with this one, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So make sure you guys are following him on all of the socials, website, all that stuff. But I digress. I'm going to go ahead and give you the episode, all right? Enjoy. All right. Well, welcome back, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Dad Hack Chronicles. You guys already know me, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. My name is Ed, and with me, guys, today I'm super excited. I'll give you a little bit of background. I went to this celebration, with this guy that I know from Let's Get To. His name is Jim, I think. He invited me over to Omaha, Nebraska, guys. He invited me to Omaha, Nebraska, and we were there, and then I got to meet this cool dude. And so it's like, oh yeah, I'm a filmmaker and all that. And then come to find out, this guy directed one of the coolest minor league documentaries out there, guys. 50 Summers. You guys got to watch it. But I have with me today, Dan, I apologize, Napoli. How are you today, my friend? How you been?
I'm good, man. Dude, after an intro like that, how could I not be? Yeah, I'm doing good, man. Just it's the full swing of like spring into summer. Like, weather's beautiful. It's great times for games, awesome time for sports. We got hockey, got I'm not a huge basketball fan. Full disclosure, it's probably what I follow the least, but I grew up in Denver. So the Nuggets making the NBA Finals last
A
night.
full sweep, dude.
Yeah, wild, dude. Lots of friends. My best friend growing up is a huge basketball fan. So I know B Dub back home in Denver is very psyched. Working on a bunch of cool projects. Got to meet all you guys when Jim and brought the whole gang out to Omaha. Super nice that he invited me. It was rad that we got to meet each other, and it's super fun doing this.
And here we are, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, yeah, I grew up in, born Puerto Rico, but grew up in Cleveland, and then somehow I got into hockey. Basketball is the last sport in my list that I follow as well. I'm with you there, and but look, listen, I'm a Cavs fan. I'll root for my team over there. But man, hockey right now, and we've adopted my wife and we've adopted the Carolina Hurricanes as our team. Obviously, being here in North Carolina. Sorry, man. I know, right? But being in Raleigh, so you got to kind of take a team, and then we just had a date night to go to the hockey game. How awesome
Dude, that's
is that?
Awesome. To the playoff game. That's very cool.
Not only that, but get this. That was my very first NHL game ever.
Oh, wow.
And it happened to be a playoff game, dude.
So, dude, funny thing to tie it back to baseball in two ways. So I grew up like a huge hockey fan when it wasn't. So this is we didn't get the Avalanche didn't come until the summer in between my freshman and sophomore year of college. But my dad's an East Coaster. Like, we're from Brooklyn, hence like the Vin Scully shirt.
Beautiful shirt.
So, obviously Original 8 Rangers was like huge hockey fans. So watched tons of hockey growing up. And like my first hockey game, I guess, was a Colorado Rockies game. Because what a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot of people, but some people don't know is that's where they land, why they landed on the name for the baseball team. Colorado had an NHL team from like maybe like 78 to 80, that was the Colorado Rockies.
No way.
Yeah. So, dude, if you ever see on that classic Colorado, like you see a lot of those shirts where it's like the triangle
Yep.
and the blue and white mountain and the sea and the like, that's what was on their jerseys and stuff like that.
Which, by the way, it
So,
made a comeback to it with the Avalanche,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is
man.
beautiful, man. Oh my
Yeah, they do
God.
some cool. They do some cool deals. It was awesome to see them win last year. Bummed that they got knocked out, but I mean Seattle was playing awesome. Avs had a lot of injuries this year, but
Hmm.
tip of the cap to those guys. But yeah, I'm a big sports guy,
All
big
around.
sports fan. So obviously, I guess it would make sense. And I mean, very low level. I don't want to misrepresent, but I did play, get a scholarship to play like D2 college baseball.
No shit.
So yeah, just a little out here in Western Nebraska, University of Nebraska at Kearney. You know, I always say, man, dude, if you're like a left-handed pitcher, which I was, it's like you get a
Yeah.
lot of extra lives, you know? So
you get to go around a couple of times around just because you're a
yeah, man,
lefty.
yeah. People will give you a couple extra shots. So
You're like, I'm gonna go ahead and keep sticking around because yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I love
yeah.
it, man. That's awesome. I wish I only played like I mean, I would say a little bit over half a season and as a freshman in high school. I play catcher. I'm 6'2", right? Like when you met me, like I'm a big
Dude,
dude,
yeah, dude.
and my knees gave out after that. So I was like, I'm out, you
I
know.
bet, man.
So
Yeah, that's I know. Dude, one of my two catchers throughout high school was a big dude, your size, and I know, and he also went on to play at a different D2 school, and I know
yeah,
Josh's knees ultimately really started to get to him
yep.
by the end.
And that's why I just had to stop. I couldn't do it. I'm like, I'm just if I want a good quality of life, I'm gonna need to just do something else because man, my knees are just when you go up the stairs now as a 41-year-old, all I hear is I'm like, oh
The
God.
creaking.
Yeah, right, exactly. So what are you gonna do? Okay, so what I want to do before we go into our talk about the film because I have a thousand questions. I was just telling you offline that I was literally watching the documentary again because I've watched it like 1,000 times, but I was rewatching it just so I can come up with some questions, right? Fresh in my mind.
Sure.
Um, but how why sports, right? Like why baseball? Like a lot of people ask us like how'd you become a fan? But I'm like why you landed as your number one passion if as far as sports is concerned as being baseball.
I mean, I grew up and I mean to be honest, it's definitely evened out with
Mm-hmm.
a lot of other
Same here.
sports and stuff
Yeah.
as I've gotten older. But yeah, I mean, it was like I mean, my dad, I mean, it just was in our household. My dad was a huge
Mm-hmm.
baseball fan. I mean, Brooklyn Dodgers guy, grew up in, I think it was like 8 or 9 years old when they won the series in 55. So he remembers like that whole, so I mean, that just was kind of ingrained. Like he and my mom, they were still in New York. So they had season tickets, I think through the bank they worked at, to like the 68 Miracle Mets.
Oh my
Because,
God.
for a lot, like, quick New York baseball history, right? It's like, and I mean, and that's why the Mets have the blue and the orange. The
Yep.
orange is from the Giants. Like, I mean, my dad would tell me like crazy shit, which is funny. It wasn't a big deal then, but it's a big deal now. He would like take the train to like Polo Grounds as like a 7-year-old. You're like, what?
That
Like,
doesn't happen anymore,
right? You
man.
would never do that. You would never do that now. So, but yeah, so they kind of transferred over to being, Mets fans because it was, the way that I was always told, as it's handed down. I know this is overly,
Of course.
you know, very broad sweeping generalization, but that is like, if you had grease on your hands and you're a blue collar,
Yeah.
you like the Giants or the Dodgers.
Interesting.
If your dad wore a suit and carried a briefcase, you were a Yankees fan. Now, of course, you do Bronx, and that's not a
Right.
broad sweeping. Like I said, that's an overgeneralization. But that's how my family would break down the kind of like early 50s in baseball. So yeah, dude, just always played it. Loved watching. I mean, I can still always remember Sunday nights, John Miller and Joe Morgan
Oh,
doing like the
Joe
ESPN
Morgan,
games now.
man.
So lots of Vince Scully. so yeah, dude, just as long as I can remember. And then really, dude, like, um, and not even out of spite, but like my fandom really cooled off with the 94 strike.
Yeah.
Um, really because I mean it was convergent of a bunch of different stuff. Obviously, I was like sucked and was pissed there was no baseball, but I was
Obviously, yeah.
graduating high school. I was getting into college. I was starting to get more and more in deeper and deeper into like music and action sports and like all of these other things.
Hmm.
So it was like there's all of these other things and life just kind of starting to compete with my baseball anyways. And then baseball's gone for 18 months or however long it was.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, casually watching stuff. I mean, honestly, it was like moving to Omaha and which I did in 2006, and then eventually going to Storm Chasers game in the new park, and kind of get that I was getting a like, oh man, is kind of rekindled a little baseballism, I guess.
Yeah. Great company, by the way. Great. They got a lot of cool stuff. But okay. And by the way, you gave me the perfect segue, so much appreciated. Thank you so
I
much.
try, man. I do.
That was really
I
good.
try to help you
I'll
out,
give you,
brother.
yeah, that was really good. All right, so let's talk about this, right? Because obviously, and I've since like a year or two before COVID happened, that's when I discovered this film, right? And 2020, it was released,
We
right?
came out, dude. We came out less than 6 weeks before the
That's what.
fucking world
Okay,
shut down for COVID.
I remember because then I'm sitting at home. Obviously, no one is doing a damn thing, and
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? Let me watch this. And I told my wife, I was like, that's when I was like, my fandom for not just baseball, right, but minor league baseball, right? That's when and
Yeah.
then I could not get enough of like documentaries and shows and videos of minor league baseball. And then I came across this one, and it was where was it? On Amazon.
Yep.
Yep, it was on Amazon Prime. And I was like, boom, here we go. Hour and a half, perfect. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Man.
So, dude, it's wild. Our originally, um, Gravitas Ventures is our distributor.
Yep.
Who knows? So originally we were going to release it. I think and I apologize. I'm sure we're kind of jumping all out of order
No,
here,
go
but
for
it
it. Do
makes
you
sense
good.
right now.
This is yeah.
So I think I think they bought the film in the summer of in the I think in the summer of 19,
Mm-hmm.
spring, late spring, early summer of 19. Yeah, because we finished festival circuit.
Yep.
And then originally we're talking about like, okay, well, like deliver, like we think we'll put it out during like the World Series
Mm-hmm.
around that time because baseball interest is high. And
Yep.
then as we started getting closer to that, they were like, hey, actually, you know what? We think spring training would actually be an even better time period because everybody's super positive, right? You always have optimism.
Yep.
Your team, you're excited, and we're like, oh, that sounds awesome. Like, okay, that makes a bunch of sense.
Right.
So, I think it comes out like February 18th,
Oh
2020
my
is when it.
God, dude.
So, and we were talking what we were going to do for promotion. We were maybe going to do some things with minor league baseball at some screenings and some different, all of these potential different plans. And just obviously, like everybody else in the world, the bottom just falls out and you're like,
Oh my
okay, well,
God.
and like, I mean, it's cool to hear you say that story because we did end up hearing that for people. Like we started doing a lot of podcasts. The flip side of all this is like people are trapped at home.
Yeah.
You don't have sports. I know the Chasers even did a really cool like a drive-in movie like screening of it during
Yeah.
because of course there's no season in 2020. So just so there was something like they showed it up on the Jumbotron and then like had people parked and went and so it was cool, but there's also of course a very interesting like, oh man, like what maybe would have been.
Like what could have been, right?
Yeah, wild.
But like we're talking about it's like it's now picking up some steam Yet
Yeah,
again, we're in 2023, right? Like, right in the middle
yeah,
of
like,
baseball season now.
dude, we just the film just landed, and I didn't even know about it. I was logging in to watch something else, but the film just landed on Peacock, April 15th.
That's
And
amazing,
so
dude.
new people are finding it, like, dude, the super wild story, legit. This just happened last week. I'm on the phone with QuickBooks, like tech for,
Yeah.
the accounting software, and she's like, oh, what did you, so okay, you can, because my production company now is called Aroa Cinema. And she's
Yeah.
like, what, so you're in film, right? I was like, yeah, film for your production. She's like, oh, would it be anything that I've seen? And I was like, I'd probably not. I was like, I do a lot of documentaries. I did this minor league baseball documentary, like 50 Summers. She's like, oh, I know 50 Summers. I'm like, no, you don't. She's like, oh no, I totally do. We just got my dad set up with Peacock this weekend. He's a huge minor league baseball fan in Reading. Like, we watched it. She's like, she's like, I looked up your thing. So, okay, then you also did this like paintball documentary, right? I'm like, yeah, that's me. Okay. This is so bizarre, dude. Like, super wild.
That's amazing, dude. Like, you're just literally talking about like, well, I need to get my accounting done, but keep coming though, because I love
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Or I was like, oh yeah, I got to get back to the reason I'm calling, like whatever. Like,
Right.
why is it conceivable like clicking off like it's supposed to? But yeah, that was and so I was like, oh, this is first. She's like, yeah, we just logged into Peacock. So like, that's always interesting. You never know when people are going to find it, or and I've got that from a couple folks that have reached out, that this is because, dude, it's so crazy. There's so many streaming networks out there.
Oh my
There's
God,
so
too
much
many.
content. It's you, yeah, dude, you can't, it's
Everybody's
um
competing for their piece of the pie.
absolutely. And so it's really easy to sort of get lost. And then you also don't, everybody, you know, Amazon Prime's I think it's the most accessible streaming network, but like not everybody uses it the same way, or not everybody uses it as
Mm-hmm.
much. So yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, this film that was shot mostly in 2017 and 2018, here we are in 2023, and like folks are finding it for the first time, which is kind of neat.
So, I literally, no joke, during that time period, I literally just put baseball on Amazon, and then I just started looking for.
Look at
That's what it was.
whatever you, yeah.
Yeah, give it to me. Yeah, I'm adding it to my list. Adding it to my list. Adding it to my list. Because you needed something to do, right? During that time, and then you go back and watch it again, and you're like, man, this is why I love baseball, right? This is why I love minor league baseball. Okay, but let's dive into the documentary itself. My first question is, why the hell did you want to make this documentary?
So, dude, great question. And I have to give like all the credit, the onus, like the germ for this idea came from our producer, Bill Hipsher.
Mm-hmm.
And unlike me, Bill is a lifelong Omaha guy.
Okay,
Lived here forever, going to Royals games. Omaha Royals, I mean, Bill is as Omaha as
that's a
as
good,
can
yeah.
be. Yeah. And so he owns a like this really kind of like progressive ad agency called Herd Ad. It's like media marketing and entertainment is how
Yeah.
it's branded. And Storm Chasers were like a social media and like digital marketing client
Mm-hmm.
for Herd Ad. And Bill was like, hey, this minor league baseball story is just an undertold story. It's an underserved, you I don't think their story is really out there, in the world. And this
Mm-hmm.
is after, having worked with the Chasers for a couple of years, and much like yourself, and working with anybody that spends any time in minor league baseball, like you quickly realize it's not it's not really about, I should say it's not really about, but the next generation of pro superstars is only one small element of the minor
Mm-hmm.
league baseball experience,
100%. Oh yeah.
and you don't get, and I think like a lot of folks, that's just not really present. So we sat down, um, I was running Herd Out Films. This is the
Yeah.
film and production division for Bill at the time, and it was like we're doing a lot of other action sports documentaries. That's kind of where my background comes from.
Okay.
And he said, "Dude, we should. I want to make this film." And like set down like three pillars for me, and it was like we've got to spend some time with the game day, with the present day experience of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be about the Omaha story, and I want people to get a bigger experience of just what minor league baseball is like.
Oh yeah.
And then then that's on my plate to be like, okay, dude, make this a story, like make this a thing. And then Omaha was also coming up on, as is the title of the film, and as it's set, it was its 50th season. It was its 50th anniversary of being the
Yeah.
Royals AAA team. That was the second longest affiliation in all of baseball. I think Reading and Double A has been like a few years longer, and it's the longest at AAA. So then, just myself as a filmmaker, and I come from like my degrees in journalism.
Yep.
Like I'm always a why guy. I always want to ask why. When you see something like that, like the Sesame Street, like okay, one of these things is not like the other. Like, well, why? Well,
Why?
why do the affiliations change all the time? Why is Omaha and KC's relationship so long? Is it just the geography? Like, would you keep a whole relationship based on that? So, like, for me as a storyteller and a filmmaker, like, that's where I start coming in and I start looking to peel off the
Mm-hmm.
layers of the onion. And then, we really kind of, stumbled into like a whole, as you get, we'd be like, oh, okay, there's a lot more layers to this onion than we maybe think.
Yeah, and it was awesome to see that some of the faces that we as fans of minor league baseball we recognize, right? Like, Brandy O's was on it, right?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
Ben's Biz, right? Ballpark Digest. Like these guys like are the people that we follow on social media that you know of, right? But then also you have, you included the Richmond Flying Squirrels, right? Iconic now. Like, that's like as cool as it get when it comes to minor league baseball logos during bowls, right? Listen, if you don't know anything, if anything, it's like during bowls that you know what I mean, you'll know what it
Yeah.
is at that point. So
Yeah, dude,
it was
Parney and
cool to see.
Richmond. I mean, man, all of that stuff. I mean, I can't give you can't give enough credit to Marty Cordero,
Yeah.
who's kind of the main subject of our film. If you will, you got to kind of have a focal point, and anybody knows knows of that franchise, and but just a lot of people from the Chaser staff. Um, uh, Gary Green and Larry, who own the team, of really opening the doorway for us to make all of those, like, not just put that hit list together, if you will,
Hmm.
but like get us um
You got to get it through the door,
access
right? Yeah.
access and comfort, man. So I've been doing documentaries in one shape or form since 1999. Like, I started as a music supervisor, and like trust and comfort with your subjects is everything. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't have that, like, you can't make, and I always say that's kind of the difference between like doc and reality
Yeah.
TV in the entertainment. Like, we're not trying to have that oh gotcha moments. But you got to have that connection, and it was an instant yes, and it was instant credibility, coming from those three people: Larry, Gary, Marty, and then Marty's staff, like, some other folks in the front office, making those calls and kind of lining some of those things up. That's like, hey, we're doing a documentary on us, but it's also on minor league baseball. Like, would you participate? And like, Parney was like from Richmond, who's awesome, who we like. Speaking of Carolina and the Mid Atlantic region, super bonded immediately. Like, I'm a massive pro wrestling fan. And
The pants that he wore was amazing.
dude, he's actually wearing a Ric Flair T-shirt under his zip up. Like, you
Oh,
couldn't
that's
you couldn't see it
amazing.
until like we went off air, or we cut camera, I should say, and we were talking. and I can't remember what reference. I think he said something about, oh yeah, some of the, even some pro wrestlers lived in my neighborhood, and I'm like, oh really? And so we kind of chatted. But yeah, that was amazing. So we couldn't have got that access and that comfort level without Marty, Larry, Gary, and the rest of the Omaha front office that really like welcomed us in and opened all of these doorways for us.
They really did champion, making this a successful documentary, and it can be very hard, I'm sure, because listen, if it was easy, everybody would do it. That's the thing at the end of the day, right? But let me ask you, because obviously I've never been on that side of the business. Like, I've never done any kind of film or anything like that. If anything, I just have a YouTube channel with a bunch of videos. That's it, nothing else, right? But like, I want to know, like, what is that process like? All right, so you got that idea, you pitched the idea, but like, I'm sure there has to be like plenty of time for you to come up with like the storyline, the subject, sub-subject. I mean, because there's a lot going on with this
Yeah, man.
documentary.
I think the biggest surprise in documentary filmmaking that I run in with across my conversations with people
Mm-hmm.
is how much writing is in documentaries. Documentaries have writers, and that doesn't mean we're feeding people lines, but like, and again, not in a reality way, but like, dude, go look at like award-winning docs, that win Academy Awards. Like, they have writers. There
Mm-hmm.
is actually, a massive research process and writing. And again, as a director, that's where I come from, of a 3-act structure or a 5-act structure, and how you're going to kind of like graph that in. And then sometimes like it's the biggest or something that came up. So originally we potentially had some plans or some talks to maybe even feature more teams.
Mm-hmm.
But you almost get a thing with minor league baseball where there's too many. You go, I mean, I know there's not now after the cuts, but like there's 168 franchise. Well, I can't have 168 characters, right?
Correct.
Like, you're not going to follow anything. So, my approach is I'm always a big like 80-20 guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it's funny. We were talking off air before we started rolling about how I do interviews, and it's a lot how you do stuff. We both don't like this over preparation, right? Like, I don't
Right.
share questions, and I don't, and because otherwise you get this rigidness, and like, I bring that approach when I go to a doc, that like you're coming in with, you're prepared. Um, we've got our playbook and we've practiced, but I still leave 20% to call an audible, right? At
Mm-hmm.
like the line of scrimmage, to be like, dude, they're in cover 2. This is not going to work. Like, the opportunity is here. Like, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest example of that for 50 Summers was, and I feel dumb even saying this, but I didn't realize that Bull Durham changed the industry.
Man, that changed the game.
Like, I mean, I loved the movie as like, 11, 12-year-old. And I knew that, and I looked it up and was like, oh, Ron Shelton played in the minors. Like, that's so, but like, so the first 5 people that we interviewed, when we're like, okay, well, what are the 3 biggest turning points in minor league baseball? Bull Durham, Bull Durham, Bull Durham, every single person. So their 3 answers were a little bit different.
But the main
And then
subject was Bull Durham.
but Bull Durham was on that list.
Yeah.
It was either 1, 2, or 3. The other answers for somebody else was different. And when we interviewed Pat O'Connor, president of minor league baseball, I mean, he without a doubt just goes, "Oh, Bull Durham." And so immediately we were like, "Okay, like, this has to be a storyline. Like, we should make an effort to go." And then
Mm-hmm.
it worked out just by happenstance that Jack McKeon, the legend, who was Omaha's first manager, lived in North Carolina.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah, dude, as like, because that's the other tough thing when you do docs, and big docs. Like, I'm working on an action sports documentary right now, and people are everywhere. Like, all these principals we need to talk to are all over the place.
They're all over the place. Yeah.
So it's, your travel budgets, how much even crew, like even how many days out you have on crew, that like all affects it. And that's more on the producer side, but as a producer, because I do that as well, like I have to balance all of those things. So we got a nice little nugget where it was like we knew we wanted to talk to Jack. We didn't know, he's an older gentleman. We didn't know when he was going to travel up to Omaha again. We're making the case to go to Carolina to, do something on Bull Durham and find out he lives there. We're like, oh, okay, well that's awesome. Like now I can kind of
Boom,
justify,
boom.
yeah, knock two birds out with one stone. But yeah, man, it's a big undertaking. I mean, we had a lot of the art director on the film, Max Riffner, who, if you've seen it, Max does the illustrations in this Jack McKean story. Flat out, and I mean, Max and I have known each other for a decade, so we have a very open and creative relationship. He was like, dude, I did not think you were going to be able to do this. He's like, I'm glad you did. He's like, I didn't think you were going to be able to make this work. Like trying to do these three different pillars. Like I didn't know how you were going to blend it all together. But he's like, but it actually like seemed to work out. And I get that. Like, I appreciate, I'm like, I always like, yeah, I appreciate your honesty, man. But I can see why, because it was just like, this
It was
could
a
be
lot.
such a big story. How are you going to get your arms around it?
And something that I wanted to know, and I was like, and I pay attention. Like I'm good. I'm trying to pay attention to like a lot of the details, and I'm like, man. And I asked you this right before we got on. I was like, all right, dude, did you go to winter meetings and you had all these people lined up one after the other? Is that what happened? And I was like, because that had to be it, right? Like, I mean, that's a lot of people that that are in the minor league world that are all in one place at one time.
So two, and yeah, short answer is absolutely. Winter meetings. We had a really neat. We leveraged two situations. Okay,
Okay.
so all of the non, and I'm almost laughing because the doc I'm working on now, we're going like full Last Dance style. So like we're doing the opposite of what we did in 50 Summers. I'm just telling this sort of for context. This
Yeah,
ties in. We're
absolutely. Go
working on
for it.
this
Heck
this
yeah.
action sports flick called We Could Be a Dynasty. So the story of the Iron Kids. So all of these action sports athletes, all of these pro paintball players that were on the Iron Kids, we built a set that's specific for them.
Okay.
Half of them were in San Diego, and then a couple of them, three or four of them. One of the guys' wife was just having her baby, so she couldn't come down there. So we had to recreate it in San Francisco. Now, all of the non-Iron Kids, we want, like, not only are they not on that set, but they're all in different places.
Oh
So
my
we're like
God.
renting Airbnbs, multiple Airbnbs in like San Diego, and like moving people around. Did 20 times as much work. God bless my crew, Sammy and Chris. But like we really wanted everything to be unique. What we did for 50 Summers, which again made the most sense, was we really had two sets.
Mhm.
Um, Non-Omaha people were, with the exception of Jack McKean, and of course the GM for Durham, were all at winter meetings.
Mhm.
We were able to just be like, okay, cool. We're gonna post up in a hotel room. We're gonna move around a couple times to have a little bit of difference, but and that was the easiest way, because Marty's like picking some people off for us, right? Be like, Tarney, go with him. Be like, oh, okay, we got to get this quick. What we were able to do in Omaha that was kind of neat is, at Hurdat, the woman who's their president, or sorry, their senior vice president on the
Yeah.
marketing side now. I believe she was out on maternity at the time as they were moving some stuff around. So there was an empty office for several months in the off season. So what we were able to do was, and again, kudos to our art director, Max Riffner, helped us with this. And the Storm Chasers gave us free access to all this memorabilia. So we art directed that set, but we could leave it up for like 3 months.
So
And
that's
just
the
when
that's the place I was trying to figure out, because I was there and I'm like, man, where is this place
Yeah,
at?
that's not at at the ballpark. That's all of their stuff. But we had an empty office that was really large, and so we had the luxury of, so like, one of the folks we interviewed, Alan Stein, who was a former owner of the Storm Chasers, is in Lexington, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
So we could basically be like, great, whatever day you can come up here, Mr. Stein. I know that the set's there and it's built. Like, we don't have to rebuild it. We don't have to spend production budget to like recreate it, rehire everybody. So we got a couple really lucky breaks in that element, being able to do that. But yeah, like Ben from Ben's Biz and Parney and like all of those folks were, Warren Buffett was at his office, and then all of those other folks were at like winter meetings. So that was very much, that's good catch, Ed. Good way to pay attention to detail.
Yeah, I'm proud of myself on that one, man. I'm like, man, this is cool. I'm like, all right, I'm noticing a theme. But then, of course, like you said, that I'm like, all right, so now that I know it's a set, right? But I'm like, man, I was just there. I took a tour of this place.
Where the hell is this place?
Where is this? And I'm trying to go through my mind. I'm like, I'm looking at the video. I'm like, I can't find it. I'm going to have to ask. I can't find it. But that's so cool, man. That's amazing. And of course, Warren Buffett, like, if and the fact that he's a huge baseball fan, right? Like, it makes it even cooler.
Oh, 1,000,000%. Which is of course the only reason he did the film. I mean, it's not like Mr. Buffett needs the exposure.
Right. Like, it just doesn't want, he's like, I'm good. But I was like, oh, you talk about baseball? I'll be there. As a matter of fact, why don't you come to my office?
So that was wild. Of course, that was, Mr. Buffett owned the team and the stake of the team for a really long time. As the film discusses, he kind of was part of some guys that kind of rescued and kept the team here. Anybody that follows him knows he is a huge baseball fan. So we put the ask out there, and even Marty and Gary were like, I don't know, he hasn't done a lot of stuff lately. We'll see. I think it was 2 emails. Marty sent one and then looked for a follow-up, and his secretary wrote back, said, yeah. Super hilarious. Have a phone call with her, sweetest person in the world, so nice. She's like, okay, well, tell me what you're doing a little bit. And I'm like, okay, this and that, this is kind of our setup, and I'm like, we're spending like 30 minutes to 60 minutes with guests, but before I can even get out whatever would work for Mr. Buffett, she just gets like super buttoned and goes, oh, that's the okay, well, no worries. If that's what you need, Mr. Buffett won't be able to participate. He'll give you 11 minutes. The previous interview he did, he gave 2.5. We're like, no, dude, all cool.
We'll take it.
It's totally fine. And she's like, you could come some extra days in advance, scout, set up all you want. You'll have 11 minutes with Mr. Buffett. You're like, okay, cool. We actually got like, I think it's a crazy, like, they say his time is worth like $100,000 a minute or some crazy. I think we actually got 17 with him, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, and the fact that like you were able to get that, that's you just good. All right, let's go.
And he's so rad. He comes down. I mean, yes, we are in his building, but like no entourage, like nobody comes down. I mean, he just comes down by himself, like to the floor that we were on where we had our set, and was just like, hey, hi fellas, what are we doing today? So yeah, we just come down, and so that is, that's really challenging too. Like I was talking about earlier, that thing about like credibility and comfort.
Yeah.
The first thing that I asked him was something I knew would never make the film. I was like, so, okay, toughest question first, Mr. Buffett. Who's better, Stan Musial or Ted Williams? And he's like, oh, that's a very interesting question. And he got, and so I'm also in this fine line where I was like, I know we have a timer, and I'm like, but I elected to burn that time because I wanted him to know, like, because I'm sure he gets this, like, we're not trying to snipe him and be like, I know this is before, but what do you think of crypto? Or like, we're not trying to get stock tips. This is really about baseball, and like, certainly not trying to put my knowledge up against his. but just acknowledging like, look, I'm a baseball fan.
Yeah,
Like I'm
this is not about finance. This is literally about
right.
baseball.
Right. And I didn't come in from no like, fandom or socialization to baseball, but it's like, oh, but it's a gig. So I decided to sort of like invest that time to just be, and then it was awesome. We were just, an 85-year-old richest dude in the world and a 42-year-old independent filmmaker talking about baseball, which was pretty fun.
And that just makes it even better. Right? Because like it doesn't matter your background. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
we're all fans.
We're
all
just talking
fans.
about baseball, man. Yeah, so that was a very, very cool experience, and he was super gracious. Like I said, his assistant was awesome. But and that was an amazing moment of momentum for us too. And that happens a lot with docs. I'm sure it happens with all films in general, but you sort of get like, I mean, shoot, I was doing it on a music licensing thing yesterday. Well, who else is on this project? Like, if people are unsure of it or they don't know, they're kind of suspect to maybe be the first. So, like, I don't know if Rob Riggle narrates for us if we
Dude, that
don't
was my next
have.
question. That was literally gonna be my next question is how in the world you were able to get Rob Riggle to, first of all, to like narrate this. Obviously, he's a huge Kansas City fan.
Yeah.
Right. So like that right there, I'm sure that he was all in on that part.
So, dude, the Rob Riggle story is super wild.
You guys thought that you guys were gonna get the story of Rob Riggle here on this part 1, right? Did you? Yeah. No. That's not how that goes. I gotta give you guys hooked, right? You guys gotta come back on part 2, okay? Come back. I promise you, it's good. I promise, it's really good. But before I go, all right, couple of things. Let's take care of some business here. 1. Follow him on all socials. Check out his website. Got some cool stuff that he has up in the works. Then also, watch 50 Summers. Really good documentary. You guys will love it. I promise you, it's really good. And then on my side, give the episode 5 stars. Give the podcast 5 stars. Give it good ratings. Good ratings. That means I go up on the rankings. Okay. And now up to the last part. Here is the dad joke of the episode, and here it is. 2 mice are chewing on a film roll. One says, "I like the book better." All right. I'll see myself out. And until then, guys, keep on grinding and always support the minor leagues. See ya.